Everyone, hello. I'm just looking for a clicker so that I can have audio-visual support for my presentation. Until I find my clicker, you can look at this unreleased, never before shown on stage, Pixel Kit, a build and code your own computer that any kid in the world can make themselves, use to create art, animations, games, and more. I will leave that here as I look for the magical, wirelessly capable, slideshow commanding, controlling device. Hello, okay, my name is Alex. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Kano. For the past 4 years, we've been making it possible for people of all ages all over the world to build and code their own computers, like Lego. This is the title of my presentation. I'd like to talk to you a bit today about just our personal story, how we got here, our sense of how computing and the culture are changing, and just show you some cool stuff, because that's what this is about, right? So for me, I never really expected I'd be in the world of technology, you know? I was more of an arts kid. I never really knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm sure a lot of people in this room might not either. At first, I wanted to be an actor. So that's me, and well, there. That's the logo of this conference. So that's me trying to be an actor. I didn't have much stage presence, as I'm sure you're seeing right now, so that didn't really go through. Then I saw the movie The Matrix at age 10, and this was like a religious experience for me because it pointed at this truth about our world, you know, that there are these codes that run the world that can control what you see, what you think is true, can connect you to anyone you've ever met, can pull the wool over your eyes. But only a very small subsection, a fraction of society, has control over those codes. However, I tried to learn how to code myself, learn how to program. I was terrible at it, and I ended up being spammed on online forums. I asked what I thought were, reasonable questions about programming, and people on the forums were like, "Oh, that's a stupid question. What are you, 10 years old?" And I was 10 years old, so it was really upsetting. So I did end up picking up a bit of code. The idea that enraptured me, because I was never very good at building apps and APIs and servers, was using code to make art. And this is actually something I came up with long ago. But as you see, it's kind of weak, just sort of strobes back and forth. So I kind of wandered around between tech, between art. What would I do next? I eventually landed on a career as a writer. I was reporting on technology, real estate scams at the Church of Scientology, Mitt Romney's tax returns, Bill Bain, complex, arcane things. I was embedded at Occupy Wall Street, and that was when I started to get this this urge, to kind of go into areas that seem very complex and arcane from the outset, and just break them open and use simple words, simple stories to try and demystify them. What would I be when I grew up? I basically worried I'd be unemployed. When we started the company, 25% of Europeans under 25 at the time. The old disciplines, the old vocations were changing and blending. It didn't seem as interesting to me to get a couple of letters out after my name to become a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. All of this was blending, and I didn't really know where I would fit. But this somehow ended up being what we did. This is our core product. It's called the Canno Computer Kit. It's very simple. It comes in a box of bits with a book that shows you simply, step by step, how to build your own computer. When we started this in 2013, there was nothing like this that existed on the market. Today you hear a lot about STEM toys, kids building, kids coding. But at the time when we took this out to investors, I left my job in journalism. I'll tell you the story why. People thought this was crazy. People said, why would a kid want to build their own computer? Why would anyone want to build their own computer? You can just buy one for $100. Why would anyone who isn't a programmer want to code? You can just get something, pre-packaged that will do everything you want. But over the last few years, since September 2014, we've actually shipped 150,000 of these build-your-own computers to 86 countries, and we've disproven the skeptics, and we have more products coming out soon that kind of take that same creative computing approach, that make-it-yourself computing approach to new areas, like sound, and music, and light, and games, and just little stars that fall across your screen following computational logic. So, how did we get here? Kano started actually because of a challenge. This challenge rocked me on my hinges, rocked my amazing co-founder, Jonathan, changed what we were doing in our lives, brought us together. And that challenge actually came from that young man at the bottom right. That's Mika. At the time, he was 6 years old. That's my little cousin. That's his sister, Jess, on the side. I'd left the world of journalism. I'd gone to graduate school, trying to figure out what I would do next. Found I was perhaps as shoddy an academic as I was an actor, an artist, and a writer. But one good thing did happen. I encountered this brain. It was a brain, $35 chipset called the Raspberry Pi. At the time, hackers were sending this. It was being used by pros, hobbyists. They were sending it into space, sending it under the ocean. They were making Bitcoin miners and Beowulf clusters. I got excited about this. I thought, hey, maybe this is like Mitt Romney's tax return, something that's really important but really complicated, and a lot of people are going to have trouble understanding it. But if they do understand it, they can do cool things and make better decisions. So I got interested in it. I showed it to my little cousin, Mika. I tried to psych him up about all the cool robots and servers we could build with it, and his challenge was way simpler. He said, I want to build my own computer with this, Alex, but he had two conditions. It has to be as simple and fun as Lego, and no one teaches me. And that was key. For this generation, he doesn't want somebody leaning over his shoulder saying, this is good for you, become a programmer. He just wanted to do it himself. He wanted to look inside this world that had been hidden from him by the post-Steve Jobs, closed, sealed sapphire screen aesthetic. This was the early team hanging out at Legoland, my big cousin Saul, my little cousin Mika, Jonathan. We found this amazing head of software from the PlayStation 4 team, Alejandro. We just looked for misfits. We looked for people who were interested in providing a more meaningful answer to this question. And why did we find so many that were interested? We're now a 60-person team with 20 nationalities in East London. There's a huge gap, a huge disparity in the modern world, and it's not the income inequality disparity that most people talk about, although that's a problem. The gap is this. There are more than 10 billion connected devices in the world, but there are less than 50 million people who can shape them. That's a fraction of 1% of 1% of 1%. Never has so much of the modern world been made and controlled by so few. People who have the advantage and the opportunity to get into this stuff, sometimes from an early age, sometimes not. And it leads to a society of consumption, a society where we look at the surfaces of things. We think without a significant change to the way we approach computing, not just as a commodity and a consumable, not just as something you buy, but something you do, will create a generation of consumers, not creators, using sealed sapphire screens, but never really having that democratic, call it American if you like, computationally self-driven, autonomous role. That's what we want to see. And that's why we took this board, which was cheap, it was open, it was physical, but it certainly was not simple. This was the Raspberry Pi for Dummies guide. This was the guide to this thing for dummies. I added a few question marks for effect. This thing, 40 times more powerful than the fastest computer in the world in 1973, the Cray Supercomputer. And we told a story. We started, visiting people, comparing it to Lego, of course, but then kind of scripting a sort of dialogue, a narrative, a step-by-step storybook that would show you how to put the pieces together. Jonathan and I moved into a little flat in North London. We were very lucky. Mika's dad gave us enough money to build 200 prototype kits. We hand-folded them ourselves. I left my graduate school, got tons of paper cuts on my fingers. The early prototypes had a keyboard in them with a laser pointer, so when the kids built the computer, they would shine the laser pointers in each other's eyes, so we almost got in trouble. Fortunately, we didn't. It was all very hacky. We did it quickly. This we had in 3 months. It wasn't the most pretty thing in the world, but it gave people this experience of putting their hands on the inside of a computer and making it themselves. We also did some pretty, I think, sneaky, tricky, slightly anti-Apple marketing. This was the first ever video Kano made. That's my old MacBook. I'd left it out in the rain like a fool, so it had broken. We put some food smell inside. We went to Amazing Animals, hired this monkey named Lily, very charming Lily, a rhesus macaque, and eventually she just got frustrated. Like a lot of us, I think on some level, we feel this, we love our devices, but we feel this ambivalence because, they they run our lives, but we have no idea how they run theirs. It's bizarre. Oh, there's my sound. Cool. That's my college roommate Jeremy's dubstep track in the background. Started throwing it against the wall, not only in the Western world. We went all around the world. Went to Kenya, went to Sierra Leone, working with this teenage entrepreneur, Kelvin Doe. Eventually, we put it on Kickstarter. Broke a lot of records, 15 times our original amount raised. Thanks for that, Woo. That's how I felt. Although, actually, funny sidebar, not meant to be in the presentation. As we were hitting those big numbers on Kickstarter, me and my friend Leo, we tried to create a kind of a celebratory video. We stuffed an earlier version of the computer kit full of fireworks and put it in a park and rolled the camera. I was, of course, the stupid one who lit the fuse, ran away, tripped, broke my ankle. So right as all this great stuff was happening, I'm like in horrible pain. So ain't that life. But yeah, Simple Computer Kit became, I think, for us, the 60 of us now, something a lot bigger. Our goal is to demystify and democratize technology end to end. We don't just do it through the build your own computer. We launched this screen kit in 2015 that will let you build an HD display, understand how alpha, gamma, pixels work by actually getting your hands on them. And last year, we did another crowdfunding campaign for these incredible new products, the Pixel Kit, the Camera Kit, and the Speaker Kit. The premise of the Camera Kit is you build this connected camera. You can code it to trigger snaps when you clap your hands. You can code your own flashes and filters. Speaker Kit combines electronic music and code. The coding is so simple a 5-year-old could do it. You start by dragging drops, then you type some text. You level up as you go, like in a video game. You kind of get a narrative approach rather than just a kind of broccoli and Brussels sprouts tutorial approach. We also have these sensors, which are cool. Lower cost products, you'll see them at Target, Walmart, Toys R Us this year. $29 sensor, you plug it into any computer, and you can start creating cool things with live data. Linking all of these products together, I'm sorry, I'm a product nerd. This is the last product slide, I promise. Linking all of these products together is an online platform called Canno World. Wired described Canno World as kind of a kid's GitHub. And the way it works is kids on their computer kits, on their Pixel kits, and online write and share works of art, apps, games, songs, Minecraft worlds. Those go up into the cloud, open source. Any other kid can click on that creation, see the code. The system breaks it down into a step-by-step challenge for them to follow. And you get this amazing back and forth, this incredible creative commons of kids discovering their new powers for the first time and wielding them to make minions and more. It's also quite a nice community. You'd expect with like 150,000 kids online commenting on each other's artwork, you'd get some meanies. It's a really nice community, and they're kind of self-policing. It gives me a lot of hope for the future. Just a quick video, just to show you that you guys, you can do this too if you visit canno.me/code. It's really simple. It's expressive. It's not homework. Minecraft was a huge inspiration for us. We were the first people to bring block and text-based coding to Minecraft. You can bring in live data, temperature data. That's that sensor I mentioned. Plug it into a computer, use it to control on-screen artifacts and apps with your hand. The camera, why should the geniuses at Snapchat and Instagram have all the fun? Why should you just have to choose from a pre-packaged filter that they've come up with? You should be able to build that end to end. That's going to make you feel more in control, in our view. There you go. Some good reactions here as well. Sense of surprise. I love that kid in the back. Cool. And one other mission in the title of the talk today is coding for a better future. We often think of coding as just something we do with computers. We are all coding. Every day we're coding. We're using one thing to stand for another. We're using our own languages, our own dialects. This is a code that we all use every day to stand for different sounds that the mouth can make. This is a multiplication table, a simple code that we all learn from an early age. The musical staff, musical notation, that's a code. So I think this kind of cross-computer arts, computer sciences approach, it's helped us. And I think if I have any advice for people who are working on projects now, I think now more than ever, it's incumbent upon people who want to make stuff to combine the arts and sciences. It just gives you more to play with. So we got great reviews. Steve Wozniak is a 2-time customer. On Amazon, people loved it. As I mentioned, 150,000 computer kits to 86 countries. All ages have used it, ages 6 to 81. We've had kids build radio stations, kids automate the position of solar panels, kids build time-lapse cameras to capture flowers blooming over time. So what we love is to be surprised, to make something and then have our community remake it, come up with something that we might never have thought of. So all over the world, Calvin Doe is a great example, built his own radio station with Kano. Steve Wozniak again. We actually have some support from government now. The British Prime Minister, Theresa May, she took us to India. She built and coded the Canno Computer Kit in Bangalore. So this is starting to come from the top down. It was something that in 2012, 2013, people thought was crazy, people didn't want to fund, is now starting to become systemic. But let's hope we keep it real, right? Let's hope we make it into tools, not toys. So the rising generation, I think, is a really exciting one. Stuart Dredge at The Guardian has a quote that I really like. This is the first generation of kids who don't remember an age before the internet. They can learn anything for free online, from how to weed your garden to how to build a nuclear reactor. You know, they have access to low-cost computing tools, computers that are more powerful than the one that took Apollo to the moon for less than the price of a curling iron. They can collaborate with open code. What are we going to give this generation to ensure that they can outstrip our abilities and our biases and our prejudices while they're still kids? Are we going to give them, sealed totems? Maybe in your left hand you have a computer that connects you, a computer that we all share that looks the same for everyone. But maybe in your right hand you should have a computer you make yourself that is more of a chemistry set or an idea lab, a place where you can come up with something new. I'm very excited for this generation to see what they come up with. Few notes on our journey. We've been building physical products, which is really, really hard. I think, though, maybe some of you in the room would agree, we live in a very abstract and digital age, a very virtual age. So if you're working on projects that can have a physical component, go for it. People like to put their hands on things. You can't put an app under a Christmas tree or a Hanukkah bush. This is my team, the amazing Team Kano, 20 nationalities. This is Jamie. His mother emailed us. He wanted a new computer kit box. And we were like, why do you want the new box? He said, well, Jamie sleeps with a computer kit in his bed. So we sent him a new box. Now, yes, this is about kids. Yes, it's about a rising generation. But I also think it's something that flows beyond the under 13 set. I think a lot of us who are older than that, we feel we might have missed an opportunity to kind of do more with these devices than swipe and tap. We've been really deliberate and determined at Kano to build an all-ages product because we believe there's a hunger boiling below the surface now in contemporary culture. It's in politics, it's in economics, I would say it's in the arts as well, like this yearning to look inside, right? To not just take things for granted. Sometimes this takes a dark side, people's conspiratorial focuses, but it reflects something true and good, which is that people don't want to just buy the world off the shelf. They want to customize. They want to see what's actually going on beneath the surface. We want to take control. This was a phrase that was bandied about for nefarious purposes, but I think it is a fair thing to say that although these devices make our lives much easier, humans also like challenge. Humans also like desirable difficulty. And taking control of something, it might take a little bit more effort than having the AI just do it for you, but I think it might be what keeps us human in the end. And this is much simpler. This is where we start, making and playing. Anyone who's been a kid, which I would assume is actually all of you, knows that there is that moment when you're 9 or 10 years old where you start maybe kind of coming alive to the reality of yourself as an independent individual. Like you maybe start doubting what your parents say or what your teachers say. And for me, that moment came with video games and with Lego. Because if I could shape these worlds for myself, then well, maybe I could make new rules. Maybe I could be like Neo in the Matrix, see the secret codes, learn kung fu, get the girl. But I don't know if it's something that will just happen. These three things. I think it's something we all have to push for, not just in our day-to-day lives, but also in whatever projects we're bringing together. Bringing some making and playing to any business interaction is great, and it frees people's minds. And finally, I wanted to touch upon how Kano and other projects like it, how Raspberry Pi, Arduino, how the relevance goes beyond Western world educational systems. There are four forces that are reshaping technology and culture worldwide. These apply everywhere. Low-cost computing, Moore's law, soon we'll be surrounded by smart computational dust, right? The price point for a given monad of computing power is just plummeting precipitously, and that's why we have been able to do what we did here. The second is simplicity, and simple doesn't mean easy. Easy is like thoughtless. Simple is clear and true. There's a lot of temptation in society now to obfuscate. That's causing a counter-reaction, a desire for simplicity, for messages to cut through the noise. The third is physicality, as I mentioned earlier. I think we want to move away from our smartphone screens a bit. It's 10 years since the launch of the iPhone, and people are strapping smartphones to their faces, right? I did this. I'm not criticizing. It was pretty cool. But surely there's something else in the physical world that we can interact with other than this beautiful sapphire screen. And the last one is openness. In our politics, in how we talk to one another, we're prizing openness above all. Openness, simplicity, candor. And that kind of interaction, that open source interaction that you see on Kano World with kids, that gives me a lot of hope as well. They're sharing their apps and saying, remix my app, copy my app, I don't care. I'm just glad to put it out there in the world. Just give me a like or a comment and give me attribution. I think that's cool. So I'll close on one slide and then probably have time for a couple questions. This is a shot from the International Space Station. Recently, last 5 years, the International Space Station previously ran its laptops on Windows, a closed source proprietary platform by a big corporation. Now the International Space Station runs its laptops on Linux, the same open source code that runs the Canno Computer Kit at the core. They do different things with it, of course. I think that's kind of cool that this International Space Station, man's greatest, man and woman's greatest engineering achievement so far, floating around the Earth, observing the world, has now adopted this open framework. And there it is looking down on the north of Africa, where 500 million people will come online in the next decade alone. So what are we going to give this next generation, wherever they happen to rise? That's up to us. Very cool to speak to all of you today. Thank you for having me here in Omaha. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you.
So we're gonna get right into this. By the way, brother, I figured out how you raise a lot of money for Kano. Your accent, man, I love it.
I like your voice
so
as well.
Serious, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Okay, first, second, 3 questions. Okay, name and question.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Kerr. First off, I just want to thank you for coming and sharing and all the passion that you've put into your project. I really appreciate that. My question is, oftentimes in a conversation like this, we talk about scale, but we're talking about digital products, digital services. So I'm curious what your biggest challenge has been in scaling a physical product, and how did you overcome that?
Good question.
It was a really good question. So in the first year or two after the crowdfunding campaign, almost all of our selling was through our website, and a lot of that came from press and what they call earned media. Then we had to figure out how do we get the message out? How do we get kits delivered to 86 countries profitably? And I'll tell you, 2015, the first year where we actually put money into paid media, Facebook advertising, Google advertising, we had no idea what we were doing, and it wasn't the most profitable enterprise. We fortunately now, as of last year, have partnered with retailers. You probably read today, retail's dying. Amazon's destroying retail. There's an element of truth to that, but still, 82% of all consumer products sold go through physical retail, not through e-tail and Amazon. So we ended up partnering with Toys R Us, Barnes & Noble, Microsoft stores. This year, we're looking at other big retail partners. So, working with people who kind of get the vision and can distribute you at scale is important. But I think had we not experimented with going it alone, we wouldn't have been able to kind of get the message right for the mass market. We just would have ended up selling lots of kits to kind of techie people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay. Next person, name. You guys are having like a standoff or something? What's going on? Okay,
Jim,
name and question.
Jim, and I'm wondering, so you've built this on open source, the Blocky programming language in the Raspberry Pi, and I'm wondering if you're looking at integrating with other competitor products like Little Bits and things like that.
Yeah, actually, people in our community, there's a guy called Steve Schuler. He's a huge Kano and Little Bits fan, and he's created this whole system of projects that kind of link them together. There's a nice complementarity to Little Bits and Kano. We're more computing and code. They're more kind of electronics and mechanics. So there's a nice link up, and we've done collaborations with them and with other really cool companies like on the software side, Codecademy. I don't know if you guys know them. Amazing. We're also speaking with the people at Anki. So it's a cool space, and we love to partner with people who have the same kind of view on where the next generation is going.
Love that. Love that. All right, name, question.
Hello, I'm Jonathan. You talked about open source and all that. How do you balance open source or Creative Commons, contributing to that, giving innovations there with making a profit and having a sustainable business?
It kind of links to the other question, which is like, we have open source software running on the kit, but the fact that we sell the kit, this fully packaged, designed, end-to-end computing experience, that allows us to make money off the hardware, while the software allows us to distribute and kind of build awareness for the brand overall. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Here's Kolzar again. So I work with the local Girls Who Code group, and we've both done their curriculum, and I have now co-created a curriculum for teaching girls how to make video games here.
Cool.
I think your product is great. I tried to teach myself C at age 10, and when I realized I wasn't going to get a video game out very fast, I gave up. So I think that what you have is great, but I think what my challenge is for some of these things is once you get past this like drag and drop programming, there's a scalability factor where it kind of becomes unusable. And how do you have plans, and how do you get? It's like there are a million apps that introduce you to speaking like a new language, like Spanish or French,
right.
And this is sort of like that, where we're introducing you to speak a new language. But how do you get to the intermediate stage so that these people actually get into usable tech and usable code to become interns and their developers afterwards?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
It's an interesting one. I think what you're doing, and people like Girls Who Code, provide this amazing external push and encouragement and content design that keeps kids and really anyone who's trying to learn engaged, even at moments where they might drop, right? We're trying to build this product where, yes, it can be used by code clubs, yes, it can be brought into schools, but a product whose kind of intrinsic engagingness, if that's a word, engagement, propels you even when you have nobody helping you. Your question about blocks-based code as a kind of route into text-based code, real JavaScript, etc., is very near and dear to my heart, because we were actually, there's Scratch, which I'm sure you know well, which is completely block-based. We took the decision early on that if we were going to have block-based code in Kano, it would output real text-based code in JavaScript and Python. The next stage was actually a completely text-based code app called Make Arts, which I think you'd love to check out for your code club maybe. You just find it at arts.kano.me. That's typing real JavaScript to make graphics and fractals and more. That actually became our most popular form of creation on Kano. So if you go to our platform, more than 30 million lines of code shared. More than 2/3 of that is people typing real
That's
workable
amazing.
JavaScript. And I think it's because these kids, they want to keep it real. They want to use the
Right.
real stuff as well.
That's great, man. Well, I have about another 20,000 questions, if you don't mind. Of
course.
Okay, so I define a dream as a solution to a problem, right? So how do we train ourselves to see true problems in the world as innovators in our space?
It's a great question. I mean, I guess sometimes it does come from a problem in your own life. Some of the great companies and innovations have stemmed from people finding ways to fix something that bugs them. I think it's very easy in this day and age to get maybe a little bit cynical, to think, oh, well, the wool's been pulled over my eyes, things are never going to change, look
Right.
at the poisonousness of our politics, and are things really going to get better?
Right.
I think the first step is just, I don't know, and this is a battle for me as well,
Yeah.
really believing that the future will be better and trying to conceive of the way in which it will be better. And if you can think of a way that makes sense, trying to participate in it, I suppose.
good.
That sounds vague, it sounds abstract, but
It's good. It's good. It's good. You're doing a phenomenal job, by the way, man.
Thank
you
you.
are. We have another question, and then we'll keep it moving. Name and question.
Mike Cool. My question is.
Hold on, your last name is Cool.
It is.
Everybody,
Indeed.
please just. That brother's name is Cool, man. I love his mama. All right, come on, man.
Was there anything unique about this generation that made this product really take off now? I mean, how would it have been different if the technology would have been there in 1984 to build a product like this?
it's a great question. What's interesting is, in 1984, if you wanted to use a computer at all, you had to code it, right? You had to type some stuff in and actually access it. You had to think about memory, and you had to, because of the constraints and the limitations of a Commodore 64 or a ZX Spectrum, you know, a lot of the great technologists today came of age on these kind of early computers that were much more maker-oriented. So Steve Wozniak's vision for Apple was completely different than Steve Jobs. He wanted to, and the Apple I reflects this, he shipped it with a screwdriver, you plugged it into your TV. So maybe this doesn't fully answer your question, but what we had to do with this product was kind of work against this, the thoughtless easiness of modern computing. And you know, we had to strip back layers, but not so many layers that you would just be jarred and confused.
Right.
So, you know, I think had we had these sort of ultra-fast data streaming, image capturing machines in the past, I still think the way we would have conceived of Kano would have been the same, which is we would have focused first and foremost on the story, the simple steps. We wouldn't have said tech for tech's sake, coding for coding's sake. Would have focused on the narrative. I think that, at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
Love it. Man, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
God, man.